Merci beaucoup for having me. I wish I could do this talk in French, but it's not quite possible. I'm working on it. Hier soir, j'ai passé une bonne nuit à Victo. Alors, that wasn't enough, but I'm trying. I'm not a professional in anything that I'm here to talk to you about today, but I've had a life of varied experience that have brought me here, and Hugh has taken a chance on me because he came to see my wilderness project a few weeks ago. So the question of, is my mind at the same place as my body? I believe this question is becoming more and more important as we're propelled at an ever-quickening pace towards a world shaped by technology. It's clear that we've reached some sort of a tipping point with climate change, and I think we've reached the same sort of tipping point with technology as a whole. That is, it moves ahead faster than we can keep up. We're way behind in our ability to form consensus on some of the most important issues of our times. Things like environmental regulations, the eclipsing of democracy by increasing corporate power, and the potential for artificial intelligence and machine learning to pull away from us and out of our control. So we've been on this planet for hundreds of thousands of years to millions of years, depending on when we can all agree that humans became humans. 99% of that time on the Earth, the majority of it, has been spent as hunter-gatherers. We only started with the agricultural revolution 5 to 10,000 years ago. So that's really just a blip in our overall experience as human beings. What we know is that this is not natural, this world we're living in right now. And with the start of the agricultural revolution, we opened a Pandora's box of change and an evolutionary pace that was completely different. It was at a different speed than the rest of our whole history on the planet. So this new timeline introduced us to concepts like the accumulation of wealth and the need to protect it, the class struggle, and the systematic manipulation and control of others. Organized religion was born in these times, and with it came a written code of ethics and the reward and the penalty system. Competition grew stronger than the community, and the individual became more important than family and the tribe. All of this brought anxiety to our very existence, and the panic of individual survival and even mortality. These times brought us away from the land. They brought us away from each other, and they forced us into our own minds in a new fight for understanding. This was the birth of the mind-body disconnect. And I believe we've been racing deeper and deeper to this cognitive dissonance ever since. We used to exist in the moment, as one with our natural surroundings, at home in our forests and our jungles, and at home with each other. Today it's a struggle to find community. It's a struggle to find natural spaces, and it's a struggle for sure to find that existing in the moment. I've been a music producer and a musician for most of my life, with some additional work in film and photography. I have truly loved my work in all of this, and I felt lucky to have escaped the type of work without passion or without what I felt was a meaning. Instead, my focus is really, I've been lucky enough to focus on creativity. And in order to create and to be creative, and to access that space, it's necessary to turn down the volume of the mind, to let our intuition and that connection flow. It's really a different kind of state to achieve. Much of Buddhist practice revolves around this search for presence within the moment through meditation. I've often thought about how best to balance in the modern world. I thought about how things could evoke this feeling of oneness, euphoria, and peace through that mind-body connection. I wonder about the ways we can access creativity and access that flow and that oneness of mind-body. There seem to be three clear phenomena that get you to that connection. First of all, art. Both the creation of art and the exposure to inspired works of art all can induce this feeling. I'm sure we've all had the feeling listening to music. Euphoria, magical connection, where our mind is not present. Another powerful state that can evoke this presence is love. The most obvious is romantic love. You lose your mind. But it also extends to friends, family, community, and to our fellow humans. What I believe we're experiencing here is the overall feeling that we're not alone. We're together in this shared experience of being human. The third access point, or euphoric trigger, was once all we knew. It was all around us, everything we experienced, and that's nature. I also think that we've all experienced this in things like standing at the Grand Canyon, or getting sprayed as you watch Niagara Falls, or to be on an island somewhere, looking out at the ocean, or just being able to see for miles and miles without any sign of humans. All of these can trigger this euphoric feeling. Art, love, and nature. And again, the mind is definitely not necessary, and it's not invited. All of these experiences also have something interesting in common. They were all an important part of our pre-agricultural ancestors' societies. The love of each other, our offspring, our community. This was necessary for survival and evolution. Nature, of course, it was our home. It was our shelter, it was our food. And art. The oldest cave paintings are up to 40,000 years old that we found. So we were creating and sharing art tens of thousands of years before we were planting crops and forming organized societies. It's not hard to imagine that even before cave paintings, we were making music in the form of chants and rhythms. So it was all part of our what makes us up, or the biggest part of our history, who we are, humans. 3 years ago, my life was about to change in an extreme and radical way when a set of strange and beautiful coincidences brought me to an amazing wilderness property that was for sale. You can pop on that drone. Just a minute of the land where I'm living. It's really quite special. It's mountainous and it's wild. There are wolves, there's moose, wolverine, lots of bears. I was running an active studio, a music studio in upstate New York at this time 3 years ago. I was part of a vibrant community and making creations and collaborations of all kinds. And as rewarding and enjoyable as it was, I found myself more and more stressed by the competitive nature of society and the need to pay bills and stay on top of the game. I was starting to feel more motivated by competition and money than I was losing myself in the collaborations and the creations. I was becoming frustrated with the overall lack of control I felt over things like climate change, corporate control, the erosion of the middle class, and I could not really see a way out, but I was looking. I found myself visiting the property that was for sale. I ended up spending 3 days hiking these mountainous 450 acres of incredible wilderness, and I was in awe at the diverse and powerfully intact ecosystem. By the end of the 3 days, I had made a decision. I bet you can guess what it is. The decision seemed to boil up from my gut, my essence. It was not born of the mind. I decided I would sell everything to acquire this property. A month later, I had moved into the off-the-grid log farmhouse, and a state of extended euphoria began. I immediately started to feel a change inside. I can describe it as a noise that was quieting. This constant hum of thought and stress was disappearing. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. I was deep in the old-growth forests for hours a day. I heard the howlings of the wolves in the evening, and I saw the most mind-blowing stars at night. Now, please don't misunderstand. Things were very, very challenging. I had just moved to a house off the grid, miles from anyone, that had not been lived in for over 50 years. I had no power, no plumbing. I would have to get my water from a spring that was a 10-minute walk away. And I had no knowledge or experience with living like this. It was the end of the summer when I moved in, and things were about to get really, really hard. But the thing is, life is difficult. Life is very, very difficult. As beautiful as it can be wrenchingly hard. It can be torture. And there's just no changing that. That is what it is to be humans. What you can change is the type of difficulty you take on. There's a certain type of difficulty that comes with just making money. There's another type of difficulty that comes with choosing a life of art or doing what you want. And there's another type of difficulty that comes with stepping away from urban society and moving towards being closer to the land and trying to reduce your footprint. So I stumbled into the winter and very much unprepared for the incredible physical challenges of just surviving. Fortunately, I had given myself this first year just to live. I had budgeted my last bit of money to just be able to survive. Just live on the land. That's what I would do.
Wow.
Technology always fails us.
Technology
My job was to get to know the land and my place on the land. The eventual plan was to try to build an ecotourism business with small cabin rentals and a large trail network.
Done.
So the plan was to build an ecotourism business, cabin rentals, and a trail network that I could bring people to the land, to both share the land and allow myself to live a sustainable life and continue being there, protecting the land, and by sharing it, basically. I wanted to change my lifestyle and get out of the system and hopefully help people to get closer to nature and to see this raw wilderness. And so I needed this revenue to survive, and the answer was ecotourism. So there was no cell reception at the house. So I immediately installed a satellite internet system because I knew that it would be my lifeline, my connection to people, to advertise what I'm doing and to bring them to the land. It ran off a generator or a couple of deep cycle batteries that would be powered by the generator. And I could get, they say high speed, but it was not high speed, but it was enough to do what I needed to do. I was never planning on disappearing. I'm not a conspiracy theory buff. I'm not a prepper. I was just in search of a life with meaning and passion, and one where I could be maybe more part of the solution and not just be part of the problem. I embrace technology. If managed correctly, it can bring people together and do a whole lot of good. I knew that being online would be the way that I could stay in touch with people and do what I needed to do. So I began sharing my experience on social media. And I was amazed and I was touched by the responses I got by people reaching out and really supporting what I was doing. But there was one thing that kept coming up in the messages. People would say it in different ways. They'd say, "You're living the dream. You're living my dream. You're living my brother's dream. You're living my sister's, you're living my boyfriend's dream. You're living our dream." And that had a big impact on me. At first I found it complimentary. I was verified. All this hardship and loneliness was, it's the dream, I'm living the dream. But as I kept hearing it, I started to find the overall message, I found it sad, like really, really sad. All these people that, the mind-body disconnect, they see this dream that they're not living. It's outside their window, if they're lucky enough to have one. They're not doing it. And I realized that this was in pretty well everyone. Even those people that are happy in their careers and feel fulfilled in family and life, they have this dream also that's creating this disconnect. And it doesn't matter if you're doing well financially, successful. Everyone seems to have this need to go out to the forest and to live some kind of a dream. We're all trapped, I started to realize. I mean, we're trapped by our jobs, we're trapped by our debt, we're trapped by the conveyor belt of life that you kind of get put on as you're born, and you sort of have to fall in line and do what is kind of obvious to do to feed the machine. We're lost in our phones, and we're often lonely and lacking in passion and meaning. So my life off the grid has definitely helped me with my own inner harmony and peace. And it's allowed me to connect in those three important ways that I was talking about earlier, that were so much a part of our early ancestors' lives. So, nature, this is obvious. I feel the quiet of my mind as I spend time walking and working in the forests. I believe it's the combination of connecting physically to my natural surroundings and the heightened sensory experience of doing that. All my senses are engaged, really, when I'm in the forest. I don't like to go out with earbuds in the forest because I feel uncomfortable and disconnected. I treat myself sometimes, but overall, I like to be as present as possible. I like to listen, I like to look, I like to smell, I like to touch things. I eat things from the forest. Take my shoes off every once in a while, walk barefoot, all that stuff. And it really gives me a peace within. And my challenges are they're seen and they're manageable. They're tactile. They're not like the things that would keep me awake at night in the city, this relentless stress and noise, fears and anxieties. You know, for me, if a tree falls across the road, I have to go get my chainsaw and clear it. Or if a cabin needs repairs or needs to be built, I just have to figure it out and I do it. Very approachable, real problems. The second thing is community. I've made deep and lasting relationships with several people in my community. Although they live maybe miles away, I am much closer to up to 10 people there than I was to my next door neighbor in the city or someone that lived upstairs or below me in the city. I've been helped and I've helped people, and this creates an overall feeling of trust and closeness between the members of that community. I truly don't feel competitive with others in my daily life here. I feel supported and supportive. Helping my neighbors makes me feel good. It's ultimately helping myself. There's a realness and a closeness that comes with the community, and there's not much small talk. If we talk about the weather, it's because it really affects us. The third thing is art. I'll find time for art. I mean, I play a bit of guitar, I take pictures, it makes me happy, but I feel more that right now the life I'm living is, I like to see it as kind of a big installation piece. I am sharing it, I'm bringing people to the land to have some kind of an experience, and like I say, I'll get back to art when there's time. It's really the phone that brings me out of it. The technology of communications and the phone that brings me out of myself and keeps me having some sort of mind-body disconnect. I have to share the content. I have to stay in touch, whether it's family or friends or for my business. But it's a fine line. And it's a dangerous line to walk with a really addictive experience. And so, on that note, I'll just talk about a crazy experience, one of many that happened to me on the land last winter. So when I got the land, I also put the thoughts out to the universe, I need a big dog. My big dog Inuk, he's a Malamute Husky, and he's incredibly wild and incredibly wise. And we've had some amazing adventures together, and I don't think I would have been able to do what I've been doing without him. He's free. When I brought him to the land, I let him go, and he could survive way better than me. He chooses to stay with me, and we have this symbiotic relationship. So one day we were out walking in the forest. It was in the middle of winter, and he's off somewhere. He always keeps an eye on me. If I scream, and I've tested it, he's there. And on this day, he started barking somewhere far off. Really strange. He never does that. So I knew there was something wrong. I went running to the barking continued, and I eventually burst through the woods into a clearing where Inuk is heading off with a deer, head to head. They're circling each other. And as soon as he sees me come to him, he jumps at the deer. And as he lunges for the deer, I lunge for Inuk, because he's taken down a deer before. I tackle him, I grab him, I'm lying on top of him, and there's this moment where, predator versus prey. The deer is staring at us with death in its eyes, and Inuk is trembling, and we're all involved in this experience. And intuitively and instinctively, I go to reach for my phone. And I pull it out, and I'm punching in the passcode, and I'm swiping to get to the picture video app, and I pull it out, and I start taking video, and I'm like, okay, go on, deer, you made it this time, go ahead. And the deer looks and runs off. And then Nook looks at me and he's like, dude, what the? I had him, I called to you, we had him. Anyway, I'll never be able to explain that to him. But my point is that that experience for me now is much different than many other experiences I've had where I didn't pull out my phone. I know it because I've had many experiences that were that intense. Now it resides in my photo files. It's overshadowed. The content overshadows the actual experience. I can feel it less within me. I can feel it as less tangible, less real, less a part of me. It's twice removed. And like I say, I embrace technology. It's incredible what we've come up with and what it can do to help us. But just think of that every time you go to pull out your phone. We all do it. You're having a special moment. You want to capture this content. Think of it in terms of what you may be losing. And I guess on that, think of those three things that can connect your mind and body again, which is art, love, and nature. And I think if we all try to experience those things more, we'll all be happier and we'll have a healthier world.